you have to want to live and breathe this. It has to be something like that's deep inside that you know that you are going to solve this problem or be open to pivoting. Those are people who are going to be successful. The folks who are looking for entrepreneurship to replace their job and to, give them structure and to just be a different type of job, quote unquote, that they're looking for, they're not entrepreneurs. They just want a different type of job.
That's the voice of Monica Wheat. She's the executive director of Venture Catalysts and the key organizer of Startup Weekend later this year in June. Monica is connecting people to funding and training people how to be better entrepreneurs, especially those in communities of color. After all, less than 2% of venture capital goes to underserved minorities. And then I'll share a couple other things you should know around town. So let's get started with this episode of Your Daily Detroit for Thursday, February 13th, 2020. I'm Jairus Days. Joining me at the Motor City Soundboard at the Detroit Policy Conference, Monica Wheat. She is with a group called Venture Catalyst. They're doing some really interesting things. Monica, welcome to Daily Detroit.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about the corner of entrepreneurship that you deal with. One of the things you talked about was opportunity. Let's talk about what is the opportunity in opening more doors to people.
I think in general, when you think entrepreneurship, you think Silicon Valley, and that's where the bulk of my work is. I do both mainstream projects, and then I also do what we call D&I, which is diversity and inclusion entrepreneurship focused programs. For us in Michigan, we benefit and need both. The mainstream just in general, because we do not have the benefits and the access to capital and the education and the funding that those on the coast do. Within that group, we are a subset of folks, especially the underrepresented folks that aren't getting that access at an even higher scale. Less than 2% of venture capital goes to underrepresented minorities, and that is a massive, massive gap that needs to be filled. So I work on a lot of different fronts and just really focusing on opening those doors, but then also on finding hidden talent. It's a skill set, if you will, but it's something that I love doing. I love finding founders that haven't, been exposed to the venture capital ecosystem. They don't know how far they could go if they could get, a little bit of funding, a little bit of mentorship, a little bit of education. And so I love that whole process from tip to tip.
What are you looking for when you're looking for somebody who maybe at first you wouldn't think would be in this sphere, but frankly has all the skill sets or most of the skill sets and can learn the rest of the way?
So I am a person who often when I speak, I tell people two things. Entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and venture capital is definitely not for everyone. There are multiple ways that you can build a business that have nothing to do with venture capital, and there are multiple ways that you can be involved in startups that have nothing to do with being a founder. First is kind of having that as the structure going into any assessment or any setup. I think part of it is trying to figure out if people are identifying a problem that other people do not see. They know the nuances. They figure it out. They work in a specific industry. They know the back end. They know why these things are happening. They know where the gaps are, and they can leverage those gaps and monetize them. Most people don't know or don't think of problems in that perspective of how do I monetize this? How do I grow this? How do I scale this? What would people pay for if they could get access to this? Whether it's cheaper prices, quicker service, any of those things that technology and innovation typically solves. So I think twofold. Not everyone is supposed to be in this space, but the other side of it is that a lot of folks, if they have the raw talent, can be trained. And that's a lot of what we do is kind of setting up those opportunities for that training and that acceleration. So when it comes to entrepreneurship in general, what are some of the biggest challenges you're seeing in Michigan and then also in diversity communities? Funding, for sure. But I think education is even more important from that perspective, because there's tons of folks who are pursuing venture capital that may or may not, that shouldn't be, not even may or may not, that definitely shouldn't be. And I think that's a big thing, because I think there's a lot of people who start businesses who frankly have no reason to, and they shouldn't. And I think there's a lot of talent that thinks that they should be a number one that would be great as a number two or a number three. I used to work in a corporate environment. I used to work on a corporate executive team. And the thing about that is that it takes a village to make these things go. And there is always a dearth of good number twos, number threes, who still have a lot of responsibility, a lot of things to do. And equity. And equity. In a lot of cases, yes, and equity. But the reality is that they desire more time for their family. Yes. They desire certain other hobbies. They being an entrepreneur, and I can say this from personal experience, will consume your life. You have to love it. End to end. You have to love it. I call it the bug. So once you've caught the bug and you really have it, it never goes away. It'll be in you when you're 80, because that's what I've seen, at least in my experience. But agreed, like you have to want to live and breathe this. It has to be something like that's deep inside that you know that you are going to solve this problem or be open to pivoting. Those are people who are going to be successful. The folks who are looking for entrepreneurship to replace their job and to, give them structure and to just be a different type of job, quote unquote, that they're looking for, they're not entrepreneurs. They just want a different type of job.
Right, because people keep saying that they want freedom, and
Yes.
I've always told people, so, Daily Detroit, and listeners know this, it's an independent project. We own it ourselves. We don't have any quote-unquote corporate overlords. But you know what you do? You trade one boss for 50.
You do.
Every single member of this project that gives us money is a boss. Every, advertisers, they don't tell us what to do, but we have to go out there and we have to sell and talk about our value and all of that kind of stuff. So you trade one boss for many and many more headaches. And I think a lot of people, what they really need to do is find the right job and the right manager, because I think a lot of people leave jobs not for the company they're at, but for the manager they're with.
100%. And the team.
And they should either find that manager or learn how to become a good manager and leave entrepreneurship to the folks who are, frankly, a little crazy.
We are crazy. We are. I call it adventurous, and my family laughs at me. But you have to be adventurous. You have to be willing to take this wherever it takes you, and to get 1,000 problems a day and just solve them. If that is not what you love to do, this is not the space for you.
Well, for me, it's like that. So I believe it's really about zooming in and zooming out at speed.
Okay.
Right? Because you can't do everything. You have to be able to delegate.
Yes.
But you have to know, when do I need to zoom in on a detail?
Yes.
And when do I need to get out of the way and leave it to the team to execute and edit something? And when I see businesses trip up, I see that they forget about that zooming, or they think that they'll be able to wash their hands of the details, which, listen, I have interviewed a large number of CEOs and founders on this show. You never get rid of it.
Nope.
It never happens. It's all about which details are the ones you have to handle.
And which ones can you turn off. Mm-hmm.
And that gets to the second point, delegation. Because so many businesses have potential, but the founders or the core team refuses to delegate. And when you do that, you limit your growth and you limit the quality of people that are going to work with you. Because if you're not a delegator, like a mentor of mine once said, if somebody's not a delegator, you got to go, because there will be no room for you in their organization.
That's true. That's very true. And it's something like even myself, like I struggled with and have struggled with in the past, especially early on, because, I'm a perfectionist. I'm a type A, all that good stuff. And it took me a while to figure out that we could grow big if I could figure out how to give people things and let them run with it. And I still, to some extent, because a lot of these projects are passion projects and things that I've poured years and years and years into, you don't want them messed up. And I get that. But at the same time, what are we doing this for if not to grow it? We are not going to grow it if it all has to filter through me and I have to check off every box. It's something that you have to fight for every day to understand that as a founder, as the top person, if you will. But the other side of it is that when you do that, like when you actually realize what it's like to work in a team that functions well, you never forget that. And then you grow from that in everything else you do.
So let's talk about growth. What is the kind of immediate roadmap for what you're doing at Venture Catalyst?
So right now, we run several large-scale programs each year, including Detroit Startup Week, which is a 10,000-person program.
I am familiar.
Thank you.
It's a great thing that people should check out, by the way.
Yes, you should. This year's is, I'll do a quick plug. This year's is June 22nd through June 26th of 2020. It's the week after the auto show.
So let's talk about that really quick then, because I think a lot of our audience would actually be interested in Startup Week.
Okay.
What is it for the uninitiated, and why does it matter?
So Startup Week is a free 5-day celebration of entrepreneurship focused on Detroit entrepreneurs and Southeastern Michigan entrepreneurs. And so it is typically between 150 and 200 or so free programs over the 5 days across 15 different verticals. Everything from technology to health tech to retail to music and art entrepreneurship to food entrepreneurship to brick and mortar services, social entrepreneurship, the whole gamut. And then we have scales. We have the start stage, which is idea to up to MVP. And then we have the seed stage, which is more in the middle. You have MVP and some traction. And
minimum viable product,
sorry,
right? Let's make sure.
Yes, very true.
Just for the
That's
non-entrepreneurship listeners here.
Yes, a minimal viable product. And then the scale stage, which is when you're past that and you're looking for new markets, M&A, things like that.
Mergers and acquisitions, you're getting
Yes, sorry.
No, that's my job.
Yeah,
Fill it
that's
in.
totally fair. So for us, it's a it truly is a celebration. It's powered by Quicken Loans, and Quicken each year has done Detroit Demo Day. And so we're super excited about that. In year one of Detroit Demo Day, they gave away $2.3 million worth of funding in both investment and grants to entrepreneurs. The last few years, they've given away about $1.3 million in funding to entrepreneurs at different stages. There's the same thing like grow, scale, build. And then there's a whole bunch of other like just standard things like you can get free headshots and free legal advice and marketing and office hours. But then you can have all these workshops and classes and intro to code and how to talk to a developer and how to build your accounting statements and how to also like focus on all the things that make your company work, no matter what vertical it's in. So it's something that we put on as Venture Catalyst. We launched it, we run it, and it is a massive entity in that. Like I said, we're 10,000 plus attendees per year. We are 200 sessions. We are between 250 to 350 speakers, and we're over 200 partners across all organizations, nonprofits, city, state government, and beyond. So it's a massive community-led venture that just helps all of these businesses get to the next level.
Well, and where will it be at?
So this year it's downtown in Capitol Park.
Okay.
So Capitol Park is the intended kind of base camp that's for the daytime programming, and the nighttime programming is in the neighborhoods, and we're still doing a TBD on the nighttime programming location. But we usually have those two hubs where we're focusing all of our programming. It makes it a lot easier on our team. In earlier years, we had like 40 different locations around the city, and that was a bit much to handle, so we've reduced a little bit. But it is DetroitStartupWeek.com. Right now, we're still taking program submissions. They're good through the end of January, and then the community votes. So after all the you put your submission in there. Anyone can speak. It's free to speak. It's free to present a program. It's a free ticket to go. You submit your proposal, and then the community gets to vote on the ones they want to see the most. So that way we're getting the best content that will get the best results as far as attendance. It is a labor of love and a passion project, but it is a needed part of ecosystem development here in Detroit. It has a ton of benefits. We have companies that launch with us each year. They're winning competitions. They're getting funding. They're meeting co-founders. They're meeting business development partners. They're getting the professional services, things that they need. So it's all those different pieces that make companies go to the next level. And it's one of our anchor programs as a Venture Catalyst team, but we do about a half dozen other ones as well, different full accelerators, pre-accelerators, master classes, and things like that. We are focused on developing entrepreneurs.
Well, and one of the things that's important about new businesses, this is historically a company town, right? We think about automotive and things like that. But the reality is that new jobs are created by new companies and growing companies. And so if we want to create new jobs and new opportunities, this startup scene and this, ecosystem, as you called it, is important to foster. If people want to support what you're doing or get involved or see what they can do, how can they do that? So
the easiest thing is that we have two websites. Obviously, www.DetroitStartupWeek.com is specific to Startup Week. But then we also have www.venturecatalyst, VentureCatalysts.co. VentureCatalyst.co is our main website. We put all of our newest partnerships and large-scale national conferences and all the things that we're working on there. And then you can always follow us on social media. Social media, we put a ton of announcements out and a ton of different ads and just opportunities for education, access, and funding.
Monica Wheat, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us at Daily Detroit.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Here are a couple other things you should know. After a 6-year run, Craftwork in Detroit's West Village is closing Saturday, March 7th. It's one of a series of closings lately, as some believe the Detroit restaurant scene has hit a saturation point. A co-owner of Craftwork told Crane's Detroit Business that they started to slow about 8 months ago. I have fond memories of the space going back to my childhood as the Harlequin Cafe. It is a beautiful spot, and hopefully something new takes its place. About 20 employees will be impacted. A bald eagle that collided with a train in Monroe last fall will have a new home at the Detroit Zoo. The collision injured the 4-year-old bird, so it'll never fly again. The bird is named Captain Marvel and will join Flash and Mr. America at the zoo on Woodward and I-696. She's not quite an adult yet, so she'll be easy to spot on your next visit. She has a brighter beak and a browner head. In the next couple of years, her feathers should turn the characteristic white. And we're done for today. Thanks for listening to the show. I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.